What's up, straight out of Dogtown? This is Dark Days Radio, Season 5, Episode number 50. I am one of your hosts, Mike, and tonight I'm joined by Chris.
Hey there, I'm pretty good, yeah, and we're joined by someone else, aren't we, Mike?
I think we are. The third host, the third member of the Dark Trinity, the man, the myth, and certainly he's an urban legend, Sandchigger.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Hey there.
And I'm going to say this just once in the show. His real name is Bryce.
Yeah, it is.
But we're going to call him Chigg all the time.
That's fine with me, man. Whatever works for you guys.
All right, sweet. So, yeah, we've been doing this for a while.
Episode 50.
Yeah?
Yeah, to put it into context, I guess, for people that are listening, as they may or may not know, I've put all the shows up onto YouTube, so you can listen to them there, and we are getting listens there. I think episode 1's now almost had like 200 hits, so we're getting people dropping by. And there is, if you were to listen to all of Darker Days back to back with all the Darklings, you've got 4 days worth or more of content to listen to. And considering we don't just babble on about nothing, we don't really go off on tangents, that's a lot of content to go through.
Yeah, kind of is. And we're going to have a lot more content in the future, definitely. Especially because, each of us seem to have our one little non-World of Darkness game that we really like to talk about. Chris, of course, you have Iron Kingdoms these days, and I'm getting pretty into Shadowrun. And Chigg, you're a big fan of the non-World of Darkness game, Changing the Dreaming.
That is technically a World of Darkness game, Mike.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Yeah.
Hashtag burn. Anyway, no, it totally is. But definitely good stuff. So actually, I think while we're in the opening segment right here, why don't we ask Chigg what his geek cred is?
Yeah, does he actually play games, or does he just read books and then talk about playing games?
No, I actually do play games. I'm not playing any World of Darkness games at the moment. I do have a 4th edition D&D game that I'm running in, set in the Earth Dawn setting that a friend of mine runs, and we alternate back and forth. When he's not running that, I'm running a Fate Core Ghostbusters game.
Hey Chigg, I think I gotta ask, in your opinion, which is a better system, the Earth Dawn system or the D&D 4th edition system?
I'm not a huge fan of either of them, to be honest with you. No, I'm really not. But if I had to choose between those two, like you're making me do here, I would probably choose Earth Dawn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's...
I am not a 4th edition fan.
Wow, man. Especially given what we've discussed about Earth Dawn and how, for example, there's only primarily one build for each class.
Yeah, I know that is a complaint of mine, but it's not trying to emulate an MMO with daily powers and encounter powers and all the time powers at wills. That's just I don't need to have a rotation for my fighter,
Yeah, but it is an interesting matchup because in Earth Dawn, all the classes they're all magically based. Even the fighter, has special abilities and powers, just like in D&D 4th edition.
Yeah, I think that might be why my buddy decided to convert it over to 4th edition, because he knows that nobody really cares for the Earth Dawn system. So
right.
he chose the one that the group cares for even less.
Is Earth Dawn... Hold on, what system is Earth Dawn running on?
It's its own system. It's
okay.
Yeah. From FASA back in the day.
Oh, okay. So, oh god, is it a dice pool system, or is it some percentile thing, or is it some other D&D emulator?
It's dice poolish,
right?
But they have really weird like Mike said, everything has a magical power. Even the fighters have magical, arrow shooting abilities. So I mean, it's a different
S-
system. It's
Sounds like you
very
may as well
very.
just convert it to Iron Kingdoms, actually. I think Iron Kingdoms would work better.
I'm trying to get him to convert it to Fate because that's
Mm,
my
yeah.
system of choice, and it can futz around with anything. So
Well, Fate is definitely a very good story gaming system. Definitely.
Mm.
If you want a miniatures combat system, you can't go wrong with Iron Kingdoms. It's so tightly designed that, and there's so many different careers. You can pretty much do whatever you want very easily, and there's very specific rules for what you want to do, no matter what, pretty much. So if you want miniature-based combat, yeah, definitely go with Iron Kingdoms.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty easy to run a fairly large scale combat scene with a lot going on. So like with I would say 20 or more minions or creatures and other stuff and steam jacks all on the board plus the player characters. So it handles it fairly quickly once you get people to start making choices rather than dithering about every single little choice they could do.
well, I'll have to recommend Iron Kingdoms to him. See if he'd prefer that to fourth edition.
Mm.
Indeed, indeed. And I think with that, let's move on to World of Darkness news. Actually, there hasn't been that much news. We had Gen Con going on, and there was some discussion there, but nothing too new. And no books have come out. A couple in print, but they've already been out on PDF, right?
Yes. I mean, I guess the only things really going on at Gen Con, and I haven't seen if they're up on YouTube yet, and most of the talks by any of the Onyx Path crew who were there. Um, yeah, there isn't really much news from that.
They announced
Obviously,
Mage 20, guys. Come on, that's huge news.
that is huge news. Yeah, they've got Mage coming.
And, well, Wraith 20 as well was announced, which I think we mentioned that last episode. Maybe not.
I think so. Maybe.
I believe it was. Yes.
Okay, yeah, Wraith 20th anniversary editions totally gonna come out. Rich Dansky is developer. It's gonna be sweet. Just in case I didn't mention that previously on the show.
And of course, I think Rose Bailey had their, from what I've read, some parts of the draft for Blood and Smoke for people to peruse. And we keep getting some stuff out for that. So the latest Vampire the Requiem blog post is the Auto Dracal, and in particular looks at coils and a new thing they've introduced. If I go to the post, which is here somewhere. No, I can't find it right now. But it's something new they added, not just coils, but for the life of me, I can't think of the term they've used. But the Auto Dracal has coils, which is not really blood magic and not really thaumaturgy. It's not really comparable to Thaban sorcery or Kruak. It's something to do with overcoming the limitations of the vampiric form. And part of that now is how your vampire can perform experiments, because the Auto Dracal is essentially kind of a Victorian, occultist, alchemists, and scientists all rolled into one. So the idea that your character can perform experiments that can then translate into status within the Auto Dracal and new powers is really cool. So I'm really looking even more forward to that book coming out finally, because the Auto Dracal are wicked.
Definitely, I like it. And of course, with regard to the Kickstarter books, Mummy is pretty close to shipping. Werewolf's
Pretty
getting
close.
there, and Hunter's Hunted 2 will be not far behind. So we'll be finally getting those, right?
Any day now.
Any day.
So yeah, it'll be good to see that finally.
Get the print on demands already.
Yeah, we get print on demand. So I mean, we've already read the PDF. We spoke loads about the book, well, months ago now. But yeah, it'd be nice to have the physical copy. And it being a deluxe physical copy, of course. What else?
The Trinity Continuum books.
Yeah, that's been announced. And obviously, I guess there's been some talk of how has there been some talk or announcement on how they're converting Scion over to a different system or something? Because obviously,
Yeah, it's
they need
the
to use
it's jokingly
different-
called the Story Told system, and it's going to be apparently going to cover everything from a mere mortal to a godlike being, and that's going to be used for both the new Trinity games and Scion.
I hadn't heard about that one.
So that's, I guess, going to be some form of derivative system of Storyteller that doesn't look like Storyteller.
It's not going to be Storyteller.
Well, it's not even going to be Storyteller.
Yeah, it might use D10s. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my gut feeling would be try and, yeah, I guess not make it dice pools, and so it kind of, I mean, the easiest, when you want a Storyteller system that isn't Storyteller, you can immediately look to, let me think, possibly Fading Suns as one example, and the other one is Unhallowed Metropolis, because they basically just replace the fact that you have a dice pool into modifiers that you add onto a single die roll.
Yeah, I think a 2D10 system would be interesting because then you get the nice bell curve, but you also have a fair amount of granularity that you might not even get in a 2D6 system. But that's all speculation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. And I think that's really it for Onyx Path / World of Darkness news. So let's talk a little bit about Darker Days. I think we mentioned all of our major news, which is, of course, that we're on YouTube now, and you can stream all of our episodes there. 4 days of content, pretty huge.
We also had, if people don't listen to Darklings, previous Darkling was the Iron Kingdoms one, where we had Simon Berman on again, and we were talking about horror in that setting, and we're trying to work out when we can do some more Darklings, which will involve hopefully getting Doug Seacat on to talk more about that setting, considering he knows it back to front, inside out. And Mike, do we have some other Darkling series that we need to finish up?
Well, the Dark Ages for Requiem, we're gonna totally make into a regular segment now on the main show. I don't know. I'm sure we'll talk about Shadowrun at some point, since I'm getting more and more into that setting and system, and it's pretty exciting with a new 5th edition.
I'll talk with you about Shadowrun.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. You 4th edition hater.
Oh, and we also have another reason to get Simon back on is to talk about Unhallowed Metropolis. So that'd be wicked if we can organise that. What other stuff? James will be having to wait to do his Kingdom Death unboxing video for us because Kingdom Death Monster has been delayed. So the reason for that is quality control on the miniatures. So the miniatures get scanned in, and then they make the molds, and then they have to go back and look at the miniatures to improve some of the detail work if it's not coming out as well as it should do. I mean, this is just the problem of going from a resin mold to a plastic injection steel mold. Hopefully we'll see that. It's going to be now early 2014 when that's going to ship, and it's a shame it's going to take that long, but at least it's going to be as good as it can be.
Yep, absolutely.
Which is interesting, actually. That brings up a point which I've seen raised recently as being a bit of backlash towards how Kickstarter works and how people feel about how long it's taken for these deluxe copies of books or physical rewards to get out to backers for particular games. And I think it just represents, and like the thing that I've read is basically people going, well, if it doesn't get out when they expect it to, then there should be some sort of reprimand. And it's like, well, how many of us really thought when we were going in to get Mummy the Curse, for example, thought it was a pre-order? Because we all got the PDF before anyone else. And that's what I wanted to see first. And then, yeah, okay, people have got print on demand before any of us, but print on demand's going to suck compared to what we all get in the end. At least what we've paid for, which is a lot, is going to be as good as it can be, if not better than what you pay, from print on demand. So I don't know. Any opinions on that kind
Yeah,
of?
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely a changing process right now with how Onyx Path is running their Kickstarters. So, as you may remember, when the V20 companion was on Kickstarter, that one came out maybe 2 months late, and so it was a little bit late. But they did hold back on the print on demand, and that was not released until everyone had gotten their deluxe copies. And it's only been changing with the last few. Well, maybe the last bunch, really, like the last year. Basically, since the Children of the Revolution, that they've been allowing the print on demand to be released before the deluxe copy actually gets to people. So that's really just a change in system, and I think really just Rich made a decision that, well, why are we holding back on print on demand when it's just ready to go? Why don't we just release it? And I
Exactly.
understand some people might be upset about that, and that's really perfectly valid. But that's just not how Rich wants to run the business.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who's a little upset about that. I get that it's not a pre-order system. I understand that, and I understand that we get the PDFs before anybody else, and that's all nice and well and good. But if we pay the premium to kickstart it to make sure that it's actually going to happen, to show that there is interest out there, then I'm of the opinion, and it's just my opinion, that if they're going to release print-on-demand versions, which I know they will, they should wait until the Kickstarter backers have at least printed, if not shipped. I mean, I understand that I don't need to get it in my hand, but also I don't want to go to Gen Con and see a book that I'm waiting to arrive on my shelf. There is the print-on-demand copy ready to be sold. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't feel fair to me. And that's Chigg's wine of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, and we'll see what Rich Thomas has to say about this, and what his opinions are and actions are in the future. Maybe he can fix it a little bit. Maybe not. We'll just have to live with how he's doing this.
I would say the reason, most of the reason for the change is because it's the same way of you could be sitting on something that can be sold, and that funds go towards the next slew of products and funding things in the future. So it's a question of how long is it feasible to sit on a product. Now, the difference is they're not. The main difference you can say is they're not sitting on physical product that's in a warehouse somewhere, which is what the problem with the old system would be, with the old supplement treadmill, because obviously you've got to wait until you've got all your books in a warehouse before you ship them for the release date. And to make sure you can make that release date, you're going to have to keep that book potentially months before you expect it to, because you need to have a few months leeway of something messing up and books not making it in on time. So I think it's a case of if anything, it's more to do with more to do with the money and how it's flowing and making the most of that, really. And so that they can get more books made. Anyway, that's my thought on it.
No, I see where you're coming from, but I just feel a little betrayed. That's too strong a word, but that's the only one that I can think of at the moment.
We have a few questions. So one person was asking, Gawain asked, one of my players made a deal on the Goblin market, so he's talking about Changeling Lost. In exchange for information about a relative, a friend of the salesman, a lust demon, could use the person's body as they see fit for a weekend. So the question is, how do I show this player the stupidity of this deal without going over the top? Yeah, so what do you think? So obviously a player has made a choice, and obviously the thing is like it's the case of teaching a lesson of how stupid that is, where you're not feeling like you're punishing the player, but the character's obviously feeling the sting of it. Any ideas on that?
Yeah, I do remember seeing this one in the G Plus community, and well, there's without having a lot of background about the character, it's a little tough to make exact suggestions. But obviously, you want to avoid something like, oh, the demon takes over and just goes on some orgy sex frenzy. You know, that's obviously pretty over the top, and wouldn't really, I think, effectively teach the lesson. You need to make it something that will affect NPCs associated with the character, perhaps in a negative fashion, or just maybe not negative, but will cause further complications in the future.
Yeah, I would say it would be if with the lust demon. I think you could. A lust demon's a bit obvious, really, on things that can go wrong. But I think you can use it to take. If you look at that particular character, you need to tease out what in that character is tied to the emotion of lust or the sin of lust, and you use that event to set up a morality play, essentially. So obviously something bad happens, but the consequences of that are going to be much later on, when as the character has to come to terms with what they did. And then the question you may want to leave out there is, was it the lust demon that did that, or was it the lust demon acted as a catalyst that allowed that character to actually to actually do those things? So the question is, who was really behind the steering wheel on that event?
I think
It's
you're
kind of
exactly
like
right.
I think it's kind of like when you look at, say, when the Strix possess vampires and possess humans and spirits, and looking at, how much is the monster and how much is the person. Yeah. Oh, and then the other question we've got, which pertains to section part, what will be the New World of Darkness section of the show today. Michael asked. Michael Jacobson asked, question: after reading the God Machine Chronicle, I am having trouble making certain games, well, not Demon, fit into it. Can you give us some possible story hooks or ideas for the other 9 games? Thanks. Mike, I think we spoke about all these ideas on how Demon fits into New World of Darkness cosmology, so we will leave that until we get to that section of the show.
Indeed, yep.
Cool. I think that's the mailbag. Oh, also, people should really send us in more ideas, and we'll get some sort of competition going. Because I actually went into the Drive-Thru RPG account for Darker Days, and we're hitting we've got a sweet jackpot there of to put towards some prizes.
That's right. Maybe we can send out a physical book.
Oh, that would be amazing if we could do that.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. And I think with that, let's move on over to the classic World of Darkness segment.
Classic World of Darkness.
So, the Technocracy. We keep talking about them on the show. I think it's because, we have myself, an engineer, we have Chris, the scientist, and then we have Chigg here, the IT businessman.
That's me.
That's right. So clearly, Technocracy is kind of our jam. And we've had 2 more convention books come out, Syndicate and Progenitors. So, Chigg, maybe you could give us a quick 3-minute explanation of what these conventions are and what their place is in the Technocracy and the Mage the Ascension universe.
Sure. The Technocracy and the Mage Ascension universe began as the bad guys. You were playing the traditionalists, the mystical people who prayed to a god or sacrificed a goat or did whatever to do their magic. The Technocracy went another route. They see themselves as the shepherds and stewards of humanity, keeping us away from being sacrificed to crazy gods along with those goats, and bringing us technology and all the wonders and miracles that come with it, like healthcare and 40-hour work week, stuff like that. Specifically, the Progenitors are the ones who are the Technocracy masters of life magic. They're the ones who bring us modern medicine and keep us from having to pray away the demons that are causing our illnesses. They developed germ theory. They have developed replacement limbs for people who lose theirs in accidents and wars. In addition to that, they have techniques that aren't available to the general public that are only for fellow technocrats who can appreciate such high levels of technology. They have cloning, and they have all kinds of crazy uplifted animal type stuff, and replacement limbs that are grown in vats. Fun and exciting stuff like that. But more than just being the field medics and the cloning convention, they are the heart that keeps the technocracy together. They are the ones who they keep everybody on the same page, keep it from falling apart, and they see that as their role within the technocracy. Also, the Syndicate, whose convention book came out recently, are the masters of Prime, and the masters of the primal value sphere in the technocracy. What that means is they are the lifeblood of the technocracy. They keep everybody on track. They are the managers and the bean counters and the pencil pushers, and they are the ones who make sure that rules are made that make sense and make sure that everybody follows the 10-year program that has been laid out. They are my favorite convention. They're not. For a long time, everybody thought that they were just the boring accountant types. That's really not what they're about. They're about worth, and not just of a monetary function of worth, but as a human function of worth. The more that you help others, the more that you strive toward your perfection, whatever your personal perfection may be, the more worth that you have as a person, and the more worth that you provide to humanity as a whole. That is what the Syndicate has always been about. Now, in modern times, yes, that's often expressed as a function of monetary value, but that doesn't really have to be what it's about. And that's the Syndicate and the Progenitors in a nutshell.
Yes, it is. So we've, of course, got the two conventions book out pretty recently. And they've really shed some new light on these two factions, which were, kind of collecting dust since the 1990s, really. In particular, the Progenitors, to me, always kind of seemed like the biotech convention, which they've been reworked, definitely, to have a broader expanse of coverage with regard to science and biology and that kind of stuff. Perhaps Chigg or Chris, maybe you can jump in and kind of explain how exactly they are the central core of the technocracy, how they hold everything together, especially when they seem, in some ways, classically diametrically opposed to the Iteration X convention.
One of the things that's important, and I think what the new convention book picks out, which is an important role of the Progenitors, is that I think they're very much about the benefit that they can give to humanity as a whole. That's like a really big thing within them, and so obviously they see that as a role within that can be performed on a smaller scale within the technocracy, and that's part and parcel of just not only healing things in a physical sense, so that's like whether that's injuries or pharmacy and work against diseases and so forth, but also in terms of they're the counselors to a degree. They're the ones that have access to the psychoactive drugs and know how to do all the mental counseling for people, and then also I think along with Iteration X, I guess they kind of rival in the sense that a lot of their technology filters down to all the other conventions, because without them you can't really get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, they are the two hardware conventions. Iteration X with the computers and the iPads and your cell phone that you have on you and all that fun stuff, and the Progenitors with drugs and treatments and medicine and psychiatry and all that. Without that, I mean, aside from being able to guide others, which is what the two of the other three conventions do: the Men in Black, the New World Order, and the Syndicate. The remaining convention, the Void Engineers, they provide space exploration and deep sea stuff, but that's not really anything that most people see on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, the Iteration X and the Progenitors are kind of the twin conventions that are out there that people see on a daily basis.
So the convention book, though, I think is interesting because obviously it's trying to recast the Progenitors. And again, this is quite a lot of what the convention books do well, I think, is to recast the all of the conventions as less of the obvious mad science gone wrong, science taken to its ridiculous limit, bad guys. And the Progenitors, when you start reading through that book, are fairly sympathetic groups because the crazy, it gives the impression that the kind of the crazy over the top elements of their convention have disappeared, either because they're locked outside of Earth because they were off world in some horizon realm or whatnot, and so the Avatar storm has got in the way, or they've actively gone about and eliminated those rogue elements, and so they seem, even though they've got some advanced biotech and biomanipulation and so forth, they're less crazy Frankenstein monster like, or that's not their one thing. They're far more interesting. I think that's also represented with kind of like the new faction within them, the methodology, which is, I can't even remember the proper term for it, but it's kind of like they're the bioscientists that go out there and do things. So they're kind of like you can kind of think of like a Sean Connery kind of medicine man style character that's gone out to find some new way of healing people. Yeah, the field agents, and they're a really cool part of the Progenitors now.
Well, they've added those to the Progenitors and the Syndicate and even Iteration X back when they released their convention book. Traditionally, the only technocrats that you saw were the Men in Black, or occasionally, if you were playing a digital web game, then you would see an Iteration X agent who's trying to come and kill your characters. Or a Void Engineer if you're playing off-world. Because if you are playing a traditionalist game, I guess, a traditional mage game where you're an Order of Hermes or Dreamspeaker or what have you, then the conventions are bad guys, and you don't see the guys who are making the wheels turn and making everything run. You're only seeing the guys who are coming out to shoot you or stop you. And traditionally, the Progenitors haven't been out in the field. They've been back making clones or making new medicines for the field agents. Likewise with the Syndicate, they've been making toys and getting mobsters up in arms against traditionalists. But yeah, the new convention books have done a really good job of humanizing the conventions in a way that White Wolf hadn't done in previous generations of Mage.
Going with the humanization of them, the one thing that the Progenitors book shows, and I think we said this when we were talking to David Hill previously, is that the Progenitors book really gives a good view of how the Technocracy is interacting with humanity as a whole, because the Technocracy won the Ascension War. They've won pretty much outright. But the problem now for them is that even though they've won, they're still fighting the last part of the Ascension War, which is the fact that even though they've won, humanity isn't accepting that win. So when really all their wonderful technology and science and medicine should really be benefiting all of humanity, you're getting these you can consider large-scale paradoxes occur where you've got a new outbreak of some form of avian flu, or you've got another stock market crash occurring, and if anything, that all just gives you a sense of the the frustration of the technocracy and maybe the frustration of technocracy agents at the lower levels, because before, when they still had, control and, all of the upper echelons of the technocracy existing in the horizon, they were working as kind of, this monolith, and so they were maybe too divorced from humanity, and now they've got to the point that because of that divorce, that rift between them, that's why their technology isn't doing what it should do, because they've lost that human touch, and that's kind of what's coming back into the conventions, and it's also what obviously makes the traditions still, in some respects, more powerful and working between the gaps, because they do work on that more personal level.
They actually cover some of that in the Syndicate convention book. They say that if humanity would just accept it, they could have utopia.
Yeah.
But humanity is by its very nature, it doesn't buy into that. It doesn't believe that such a thing could ever happen. And because the unawakened have such a strong collective control over the consensus, they're just not allowed to make everything perfect. They would if they could,
Yeah.
for real, guys, for real.
And that sort of momentum with the sleepers is a pretty critical part of the setting as well. That's why the Essential War was occurring, that everyone's trying to influence humanity in their own way. And now that you have one strong faction with the Technocracy, well, humanity's already going in one direction. They can only just prod it and try to keep it on course, basically, for their own plan.
Right, and humanity's course is not traditional, it's not technocratic, it's more apathetic. It's whatever, whatever.
I think also the cool thing is in the Progenitors book, I think the Progenitors seemed very, from what I remember reading of it, they seemed very focused on hunting down the corrupt parts of their own convention, and even of others, because they seemed to really not like influence of like Nefandi and corrupted technocracy agents.
Yeah.
Does the Syndicate book go into that a bit more with their kind of internal witch hunt?
In a way, the Syndicate book has one of my favorite, what are they called? The little micro-convention methodologies, the Special Projects Division,
Okay.
which, if you'll remember back to the first convention book, if you'll try to remember the first convention Syndicate book and not shudder in horror, the Special Projects Division was the group that started and ran Pentex in the werewolf setting. So
Okay.
they were dealing with the worm and worm spirits and all that. They were basically an entire group of Syndicate Nefandi. And there's a section on, hey, whatever happened to the Special Projects Division in this latest book? And it boils down to, we don't know. They still pay their dues every year, but they don't talk to us, and we don't send anybody to find out.
Nice.
Excellent. So obviously, one of the things with the Progenitors book is obviously there's a hell of a lot of how they've changed, and I think the Progenitors are a fairly easy convention to get your head around with what they can and can't do, and you can understand the methodologies in there, because either a methodology is based upon on whether it's based on like pharmacy, and they create various drugs, and into psychology, or you've got another methodology that's more towards the kind of cloning scale of things, or one is more deals with animals, or one's dealing with more with plants. And you get that kind of feel that within the Progenitors, everyone's got that kind of pet project. How does the Syndicate get updated, and how does its methodologies kind of reflect what you could play as a Syndicate agent then?
Oh, I got this. So the Syndicate now is the perfect virtual adept and Sons of Ether antagonist, because they create patent trolls. So just think of it, guys. You got your small cabal of traditionalist mages, and then virtual adept rolls in one day. He's like, all right, here's a patent troll. We gotta raid their offices. Maybe you know what, Hermetic, just burn them down. And you go from there.
No, that is mentioned in the convention book. That they do indeed have patent trolls who make sure that nobody out there is misusing somebody else's patents and ideas that they've gone ahead and spent all their time and effort to get under their wing and their control. But yeah, they have several different methodologies. They have disbursements, which are the people who manage the actual money in the Technocratic Union, and as I'm sure you can imagine, a giant global conspiracy doesn't run cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So they're fairly important. They're the big guns in the group. There are the enforcers, who are the actual guns in the group. I mentioned earlier that the syndicate had a lot to do with mob and mob-related activities. The enforcers reflect that part of their history. They are, they're mobsters. They do intimidation and blackmail, and they'll shoot you if you get in the way of their trying to corner a market. There are the financiers, who are the core of the convention. They are the big-scale economists who keep the world market that we have here in reality functioning. And lastly, there is media control. They are the marketing arm of the Technocracy. Yeah, anything that you hear about that will try to sell you something, whether it be a Coca-Cola or an ideology, that all comes from media control.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, their Special Projects Division, who no one asks about anymore.
So in the Syndicate book, because obviously, so in the convention book, Progenitors, we got the field agents. So what's some of the new things in the Syndicate book that really seem new anyway compared to the last time we've seen the Technocracy and say Guide to Technocracy and obviously the old convention books?
They do give a couple of corporations examples that Syndicate runs. They include a whole new take on the Prime Sphere.
Oh, okay.
Which is more of a technocratic view of looking at things, as opposed to, well, this is the energy of the earth, and blah, 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 and they call it primal utility.
Okay.
And
what's that in a nutshell, then?
What is that in a nutshell? I think that they use the term primal utility because it sounds better than worth in a game setting. It's just the Prime Sphere reskinned for technocratic use, and instead of a Platonic ideal, for instance, it is.
So it's kind of like a way of talking about chi, I guess, is the easiest way to explain it. But rather than being
less mystical than that.
Yeah.
But basically, it's how much value, how much worth something can bring to a project or to a whatever you're investing it in.
Yeah. So obviously, it's another thing to measure something by rather than just its physical worth and its components in whatever elements and its other spheres that may command over it. Okay. So I'm just thinking of that in terms of, like, you can imagine, say, here's one car and here's another, but the other car is better because actually it has a better primal utility. And that translates into when you talk about cars, then you can turn the term car into a technocratic procedure, and then you're talking about how much prime you need to get it to work, because one thing may be more efficient to work than another, so it's about how much primal utility energy it draws. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's an interesting take on it. I have to read it for myself to kind of get into more of the nuts and bolts, but I think I have an understanding of what they're trying to get at there.
They also, while we're on the subject of cars and toys and all this and that and the other, all the convention books have fun new toys and devices and apparatuses that you can have as a member of that particular convention. Um, the Syndicate book, however, goes a different route. So instead of having, oh well, you're a void engineer, so you have this nifty spacesuit that nobody else in the world ever has the ability to use because they're not void engineers. Uh, they do have a couple of things like that. They have some really cool credit cards that they never run out of money, stuff like that. Obvious fun toys. But they also say, because you're a syndicate and your job is management and your job is efficiency and your job is making everything run better, you have access to additional features in standard off-the-rack equipment. So if you happen to have access to somebody else's car, you can put in your super secret syndicate code and you can unlock the potential within that vehicle that's always been there.
Okay, that's interesting.
So sure, it's always had armor plating. No one else it's just that no one else knows how to use it.
Mike, any more questions on those two books?
Not really. I mean, I'm just kind of pondering that, in the New World of Darkness, for the last couple of games, they've had this Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 kind of setup, where Tier 1 is very low to the ground, very low power level, and then Tier 3 is more global scaled. And one thing I'm pondering about the Technocracy and how you could use them in your game or play as them is that they really kind of are the Tier 3 hunters. They're a very good way to explore the rest of the World of Darkness on a very global and high scale, as opposed to maybe, the Project Twilight, Special Affairs Division of the FBI. They're more Tier 1. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do they work as the Tier 3 hunters?
They can, but the old World of Darkness, since revised, has tried to get away from that. That was kind of the problem that a lot of people had with Mage Second Edition. It was too out there. It was everybody jumped off into the Umbra, and Werewolf had the same issue, where quote unquote everybody jumped off into the Umbra and just stopped caring about the Ascension War or Gaia or what have you, and just went out and said, well, I'm going to make my own reality here in the Umbra because I can do that because I'm an Archmage. And that kind of got away from the core concept of the game, the core theme of the game. So while you could totally do that at a universal scale, it's kind of pushing you toward a lower level scale, a local or maybe countrywide scale.
Yeah, I would say the way to view maybe how to run a Technocracy game at a high scale but not too high is to basically kind of consider how different what the hell's the term they use? The regional group? A regional Technocracy group called. It's a compound. No, it's a no, it's not. It's a I can't think of the term. It'll come back to me. But anyway, so you've got your regional group, which is kind of like Technocracy. Let's say.
Are you talking about amalgams?
Amalgams, yeah. So you've got, say, Technocracy. Let's say Technocracy Berlin, and it has various groups of groupings of people from each of the conventions there. And I think the way to look at it is that though you've got, say, a group of progenitors there, they may operate slightly differently now to, say, a group of progenitors in, say in New Orleans because of their own regional issues. And so the conflict there, it's kind of similar in the conflicts that you can get when you compare, say, in New Order Darkness, a Covenant in Vampire the Requiem. So when you compare, say, the Circle of the Crone in, say, one city to the Circle of the Crone in the other, technically they're kind of the same, but they have their own regional issues, which means they actually come into conflict. And I see that's kind of where the Technocracy is kind of gone to now. It's like having, rival regional groupings of officers of a company.
Because earlier you said they were cut off from the
Yeah.
the head of the group.
Yeah, head office has been destroyed, and now they're trying to establish which of them is head office. And, they're all vying for the same pot of money. But that pot of money used to be all in one pot, but now is all distributed. So the question is, can they all get it, focused again in one area, or do they have to live with their distributed system? And I think that's far more interesting, because then you may have like one amalgam discover issues within another amalgam, and vice versa, because you've got conflict between the two, as they think that there's an opportunity to use, say, the influence, or say there's a secret Nefandi in one amalgam, and there's the opportunity that another amalgam sees to use that to finally take control of that amalgam and bring it under its umbrella.
And you can do that even without adding in an external bad
Oh, no,
guy.
yeah. They can just be trying to screw each other over anyway. And you can relate that to like rivalry with the whole patents thing. So obviously there could be two groups that are researching towards the same thing, and it's a race of who can get there first. So there could be also attempts to destroy a rival's research and or steal it.
Opportunity for conflict.
Definitely. I like it. All right, Chigg, what's your ratings for these books? 1 to 10. What are you thinking?
1 to 10, I would give Syndicate an 8 out of 10, if not a 9 out of 10. I'd give it a 9 out of. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 if the history section was a little more in depth and covered more than the last decade and the very early beginnings. If there was a middle ground.
Yeah, I concur. Especially like that comment about the Soviet Union being atheist just to stick it to the Celestial Chorus. Like some of that stuff was a little weak.
Little weak sauce there. Progenitors, I would have to rate slightly lower on my scale than the Syndicate, because I think that they spent a little too much time in their book covering stuff like uplifted squid and lizard men. I'm not sure anybody was actually asking for rules to play uplifted squid or lizard men, but they're in there. So I would probably give that one a 7 out of 10. Still a great book, don't get me wrong, and it covers more of the history than the Syndicate did. So I'm a history buff. I enjoy that stuff. But some of the last few sections of the book I think they ran out of ideas as to what to put there.
So I think with that, let's move on over to the secret frequency.
It's under the stairs. I want my mom.
The Hole was first brought to media attention in 1997 through the late-night broadcast, Coast to Coast AM. Mel Waters, a resident of Ellensburg, Washington, came on the show to discuss a strange feature of his property, a 9-foot diameter hole in the ground of indeterminate depth. Mel came to the show looking for answers. He'd owned the property for years, and he and his neighbors used it for disposal, tossing in cow carcasses, TV tubes, and even a refrigerator. What was most peculiar was that no one ever heard the object hit the bottom. Curious, Mel grabbed a 5,000-yard reel of fishing line and lowered it into the hole, and the 1-pound weight at the end never hit the bottom. Curious still, Mel had tied lifesavers to the bottom of the line, which should have begun to dissolve in the water, but these came back dry. Things only got weirder after that. None of his neighbors, nor the previous property owner, knew where the hole had come from, and no one bothered to ask. Only the top 3 feet were held up by a brick retaining wall. The rest of the shaft was uncollapsed rock and soil. An old neighbor had mentioned to Mel that the site used to be surrounded by black stone columns. Something like the stones at Stonehenge, but with no horizontal members. Mel had never seen these monoliths, unfortunately. Stranger still, another neighbor had tossed in a dog's carcass, and a few days later, as the neighbor was out hunting, he saw the very same dog, collar and all. This especially disturbed Mel, since his will clearly stated that his body should be thrown down the hole. Mel eventually lowered in 3 spliced reels of fishing line without noticeably hitting the bottom, reaching an approximate depth of 8 miles, or 13 kilometers. 1 week later, after having been on the air, Mel's land was taken from him. The access road was closed off by concrete jersey barriers and guarded by armed soldiers. The guards claimed that a plane crash had occurred on the property, but there was no smoke in the sky, and no civil or even military crashes were reported via the proper channels. When Mel pressed the issue, the soldiers threatened to arrest him because of a drug lab on the property, a lab which did in fact exist, but Mel was there actually mixing herbal remedies. The next day, Mel was contacted by his realty agent, indicating that someone was interested in buying the property, but the man in black had left no name and hadn't even stated an offered amount. Listeners of Coast to Coast AM provided a number of interesting explanations. Perhaps the hole was connected to a long aquifer, but that wouldn't explain the dry lifesavers. Maybe Mel's hole was connected to the Moho discontinuity beneath the Earth's crust, but that's typically 20 kilometers underground, and that wouldn't explain all the paranormal stuff. Perhaps the hole is a hollowed-out vein of iron electrified by the Earth's magnetic field to create a natural time machine. Maybe Mel's hole leads down to the hollow Earth, inhabited by serpent men. Of course, the latter 3 would clearly explain the government's interest, especially given its proximity to the Yakima Firing Center, one of the largest army bases in the western United States. But despite all these real-world explanations, what could we uncover about Mel's hole in the World of Darkness itself? Maybe the hole is a portal to the abyss. That's a pretty obvious explanation for it. And it would also be great because it would enable non-mage characters to interact with that kind of setting in a crossover game. But it has its own issues. How the heck are the characters going to get down to the abyss? Just jumping in seems like kind of a bad idea. The hole is also useful for Werewolf the Apocalypse. Perhaps it's a Thunderworm's lair, which the citizens of the town are unwittingly appeasing by feeding it polluted refuse. The black basalt monoliths are always kind of an interesting thing to run into. When they exist so far from the ocean, they provide a very interesting image and a strong indication that there's something wrong with this place. Perhaps these act as nodes for instantaneous travel, taking players off to maybe the pyramids of Egypt, or perhaps William Mackenzie's tomb out in Liverpool. In a Vampire the Masquerade game with a more apocalyptic bent, this may be the easiest way to maybe access Enoya, the gangrel antediluvian, who is actually earth-melded for so long that she's become one with the earth. And why is the military so interested with this place? What do they know that's got them mobilized with government G-men and everything? Perhaps the government wants to harness the power of this site to create their own classified version of the Orpheus Group. So guys, what do you think? Got any other ideas?
Obviously, it could be potentially a blurring between the underworld in New World of Darkness and the real world. In Orpheus, if we go down the same sort of route, it could be a channel into that leads into the warren of underground tunnel-like places where specters exist in the underworld. Let's think. Obviously, in A Werewolf the Forsaken, I would say there's the opportunity to say that not an idigum, but one of the other creatures that appears at the end of the book, Predators. So there's a creature that's this like worm-like spirit. So maybe it obviously escaped its underground prison, where it'd been placed there by Father Wolf. Obviously, you could easily use it for a gateway to anything. So, as we said, a Vernian Gate, or it could be a gateway to a very dark realm within Arcadia. So obviously, it could be a Verge or something. and you could do the same thing in Mage. You could say in Mage the Awakening it leads to the Inferno. But let's be, I mean, it'd be more fun to think of the kind of crazier things. I mean, it could be an actual, the hole itself could be an abyssal intruder into our reality. So the hole itself is part of the abyss. It is an entity. Or it is just something else entirely. Obviously, it's existed there for a while, so you never know how old it could be, and things being sacrificed to this dead god. That this hole is a mouth of a dead god, and it's been there for 1,000 years. It's just grown hungry because everyone's forgotten about it. And so, obviously, if you started performing the right sacrifices to it again, you may see benefits to the area. Maybe the crops grow better, maybe people have better health in the area, but then in return, due to this hunger, people in the area in turn have a greater hunger for other things, for the long pig. Let's think what other games we thought of. I don't really see how it can work into Mummy, though it could be a manifestation of the Devourer god from the Egyptian mythology. Trying to think of the other games. Hunter, obviously, I'm sure there'll be various groups in Hunter may be interested in it, to use it as a way of maybe getting rid of monsters forever. The question is, where else does this hole lead to? Before the show, I brought up the another place in the world that has a hole that has something built over it called Castle Huska, which is in, I think, Poland or something. But anyway, the castle's interesting because it again is built over an apparent bottomless pit, but the edges of the pit were where monsters of some form lived, and it was built over and by a castle, and the fortifications of the castle look inwards. So maybe this is the end of another one of those kind of pits. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Demon later, but obviously the God Machine Chronicle is already out, so maybe this is a leftover of a God Machine, of a infrastructure of the God Machine. This is some form of channeling etheric energies, and again, there could be more holes like this. After all, in certain, I think there's a mound, some sort of hill in China. There's the example of finding pipes that led into the mountain, and they've been there for centuries, and so maybe this is similar, that it's some form of channeling of energy. What else could we use? You could obviously use it as a place where various forms of cryptids could come spewing forth. If you really want to take a bit of inspiration, maybe you could reskin the goat mother from Cthulhu, and use this as one of her orifices where horrible Cthulhuid creatures come from, and just turn that into some form of idiom. Maybe this is a hole that's been created due to I've got it. It's an idiom that took the form of a meteorite to escape the moon, and when it landed on the Earth, it created this hole. I think I'm tapped out.
Well, how about a Changeling the Dreaming interpretation? It could be a location where the native fae of the area, maybe since it's in the, you said it was in the northwest, could be the rock fishers or the rock giants. They have groups who are equivalent to the Unseelie fae, called winter fae, who can only harvest glamour from rock features, and both of those groups live in rocky areas such as bottomless pits. Since we're in the old world of darkness here, if we're playing mage, it's obviously a node of some kind. Maybe verbena because of the standing stones that have since been knocked down and relocated somewhere. in Vampire the Masquerade. Could be a haven for the gangrel bloodline, the Aramanes. Aramanes? They have a spirit-focused power, so the dog's corpse that was tossed down into the well could just be the ghost of the dog that the guy saw later on during the week. In Werewolf, obviously this would be a cairn. Based on the location and, kind of the people who own the land, I would say if it's a Gaian werewolf, it's probably the Bone Gnars. They're hill folk sub-clan or sub-tribe. But if it's not a Gaian cairn, then maybe it's a Black Spiral Dancer cairn. They are known to live underground and worship worm spirits like the Dark Fungus, who could very well be trying to pop out here, and that would also tie into the drug-related facilities that they found in the area.
Ah, yeah. Very good thinking.
That's what I got.
Yep. No, it's kind of a weird one. It's sort of a weird, cheesy conspiracy theory, but I don't know. I think we got some good ideas today.
I can't think of any last ideas for it.
No, that's fine. I think that's it for the secret frequency. So let's move on over to the new World of Darkness.
World of Darkness 2.0.
So, Demon, you got the quick start.
Yes.
Awesome.
It's pretty cool. I've yet to finish reading the adventure in it, but I've read everything else in there. And yeah, I think as far as expectations of what Demon was going to be, it's met them and I think surpassed my expectations. I was always happy with how Matt McFarlane was going to go with the game, and yeah, it's really, really cool. And obviously it fits in with the God Machine Chronicles perfectly, because that's one of the God Machine is a big part of the game and the setting for it.
So, Chris, maybe to start off, should we do like a 5-minute rapid fire?
Yeah, I can do a 5-minute
Think we can
rapid
pull
fire.
it off? Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so in Demon the Descent, you are obviously playing demons who are known as the Unchained. But they're not demons in the sense of a Judeo-Christo kind of Abrahamic religion kind of way. You are demons that once served as angels for the God Machine. So as we know from the God Machine Chronicle, the God Machine is this cosmic entity using our world for its own gains. It's not God in the sense that we know of God from the Bible or God from another religion. The God Machine is very alien and is using our world to harvest what it requires for its own barely understood plans. So obviously angels in the God Machine's plans perform certain tasks. They are, spies, destroyers, they protect certain things, they hide certain things, they guide people. And so demons represent what happens when an angel falls away from the God Machine's plans. Because normally an angel, once it's done its task, or it's used as put into some sort of storage, cosmic storage, whatever that is, or is destroyed and returned to some primal state to be used again. And so as a demon, you awaken to where you fit in the God Machine's plans, and you fall from that. You have a fall, and whether you wanted to fall from it or not. Now, that means that Demon the Fallen works with a certain theme and certain concepts. The big theme is technostic espionage, and that's a very, very big term. But it essentially means that as a demon, you are hiding within the world and hiding within the God Machine's cogs, its plans, its infrastructures. And you are going to find out more about what the God Machine wants to do and find out more about its plans and use those to your own ends. Obviously, you know how the God Machine works to a certain extent, and you have access to abilities that were inherent to your angelic nature beforehand, allowing you to further be able to hide within the world and make use of it. So that's quite interesting in that sense. So the mood of it is very much about Gnosticism and about control versus freedom. So in that respect, I would say Demon Descent is, if anything, the bastard child of Mage the Ascension and Demon the Fallen. It has aspects of both. And, obviously the people and antagonists in the game that you're going to come up against will be people, cultists who are working for the God Machine and its infrastructures and its plans, and the angels that serve those plans. And your powers that you have access to represent that. You have powers known as exploits and embeds. So an embed is a simple power which is inherent and makes use of the structure of the world and of the universe as the God Machine has created, whereas an exploit is really a way of saying that you know how it works so well that you know where the breaking points in those things are, and you work between the holes. So in some respects, it's also kind of works at the opposite end of the scale to Mage, whereas Mage, you are hacking reality. A demon is making use of the tools that are inherent within reality that it knows of, and that people don't know about, but it also knows where all the exploits are, where all the holes in reality are that it can make use of. The obvious comparison then to make with Demon is that if mages are the hackers in the Matrix, demons are the programs that have fled the machine world and gone to hide in the Matrix. So characters like the Merovingian, the Oracle, and obviously Agent Smith when he doesn't want to die at the end of the first film and returns. You have a few incarnations, as I said, of a demon, depending upon what role you used to play. So these are Destroyer, Guardian, Messenger, Psychopomp. You have a few agendas, so these are Inquisitor, Interrogator, Saboteur, or Tempter. So what you notice is we've got a 4x4 going on there, rather than 5x5 or 6 by whatever if you're playing Changeling. And then, of course, you've got access to some other inherent powers. So you've got your demonic form, and you've got certain powers that are very material in sense. So what I'm going to say there is that they represent how a certain concept in Gnosticism, and we'll get back to that the God Machine is very much grounded in material things. And so demons, when they show off their powers, so they will have a maw that can eat anything, but it's ringed with teeth of steel rather than of bone or anything, which really represents how unearthly and machine-like the demons are. So that's really just I guess you could say is a reflection of what role they used to play, rather than the fact they are made of flesh. It's representing how they were part of a machine-like entity. And then the other thing that's interesting is the fact that in Demon the Fallen, the main power source for demons is etheric resonance. So the God Machine is aiming to harvest and use essence, because essence is the main thing in the world, and obviously essence is used by spirits, and is used by ghosts, and is used by werewolves as well in New Order Darkness. But demons no longer have the ability to live upon this essence and no longer channel it, but they channel you could almost say the waste energy from infrastructures of the God Machine, and this is etheric energy. So yeah, that's a lot of it. Oh, and of course, the last thing is that demons, when they fall, take on the persona of the person that they were given as a cover, and that means they now, before they were just an angel that had a name and had a job, but it didn't need to eat, it didn't need to sleep, and now it has to do those things. And they can gain new cover identities by stealing other people's lives and essentially deleting them from reality. And of course, as a demon does things and screws up, they gain glitches. So glitches you can kind of think of are like banes and so forth, which changelings at high levels can get hold of. So these glitches take the form of brands and tells. So they're like a brand is, say, you have a physical marking of some form, which is, or something that you can't do. So you can't consume a certain type of food, or you smell of burnt copper. And tells are certain habits that you have or defining behaviors. So a glitch is more, a brand is more to do with the physical form. A tell is more to do about your psychology. Yeah, pretty much it.
Yeah, so remember how I said Shadowrun was my jam? Nah, it's pretty much Demon the Descent. This game is nuts. And I think we're going to be talking about it a lot in the future because it just combines so many awesome things. Who would think, let's combine, Gnostic elements with techno thrillers.
Yeah.
They just did it. And wow. Especially like glitches, for example, are very interesting for the espionage sort of features of it. But then you just have this really otherworldly feel with the entire setting, which come in with the Gnosticism. And also, I'm not sure if it's a function of the fact that this is a quick start, so there's not as much detail put in, but there's a lot of unknowns in here, especially with how demons themselves really work, that make it very interesting both for just looking at it Gnostically, but also just for things to explore in your setting. A lot of, like, with how does this etheric resonance even work? Like, what is it? Where does it come from, really? We know it comes from the God Machine, but beyond that, where?
Yeah,
Lots of crazy stuff.
There's a lot of things that it gets to, which is, I think it's quite interesting because obviously this goes back to the question that we got asked, which is how does the God Machine fit with the other things which are within the world of darkness? And I think Demon the Fallen opens up some interesting ideas and allows us to ask certain questions of depending upon which other game you want to play. So say you want to play Mage, but you want to include stuff about the God Machine and thus the angels and the demons from the God Machine to be antagonists. Or you're playing, say, Vampire and you're dealing with a certain covenant that talks to the God Machine. Or you're playing Werewolf and you want to understand why the world doesn't do quite what you're expecting due to the influence of the God Machine and how the God Machine is corrupting the balance between spirit and matter. Because obviously the God Machine is harvesting essence and yet is giving off etheric resonance. And you also have then changelings, maybe a little harder to fit into it, maybe. But certainly I think Geist can fit in there just about. And Hunter, obviously. And the first thing to say is that we have to first of all go back to and ask, what do we mean by Gnosticism, and what certain things are related to Gnosticism? This also goes back to a lot of things that turn up in, say, Vampire the Dark Ages and the Dark Ages setting. There's all the different Gnostic heresies that were around during those times. And the God Machine represents I think a perfect example of an entity that wishes to create that uses the world, the material world, as its cage, and is harvesting essence for some particular reason. Now, in some Gnostic ideas that there are, is that the God of the Old Testament of the Bible was known as the Demiurge and was actually a failed creation of a god by another god within the universe. And because this god was seen as so ugly and made purely of the material, it was, thrown to the far reaches of the universe, and so it created Earth and so forth. And that it then is different to the God that turns up that you learn about in the New Testament, and obviously what Christianity and other Abrahamic faiths are more about, is the fact that they represent the fact that even in the failed, fallen material world that the God machine, that the Demiurge, has created, the spark of divinity exists, and that's the thing that the God machine is jealous of, maybe is perhaps wanting to, in Demon the Descent, is what it's trying to harvest, is to gain enough essence, to gain all the things it needs to become a truer form of a god. And these are just things I'm plucking out because it allows you to look at other games in a different way. So if we look at Mage the Awakening, we're now asking, well, did the Exarchs who took the thrones of reality and took the thrones of the supernal realms and took over reality and even created the abyss, did they do that, or were they nudged by the God machine? So was the ladder to the celestial ladder to heaven actually part of the God machine's plan, and actually the God machine needed Atlantis to fall? Because if it didn't, it would be screwed once all of humanity woke up and realized the God machine was there.
But what if the Exarchs brought the God machine in, probably didn't create it, but made some deal with it to create this infrastructure to hold together that cage?
Yeah, it means then is the abyss then a form of infrastructure, and that's kind of interesting. The other thing is, when we talk about etheric resonance, that brings into and angels. It then brings in the question, like, well, what about the supernal realm of ether? Because that's the realm of angels and etheric energy and prime. And does that mean that demons are related to this in some way? And is the God machine making use of the fallen reflection of the ether and obviously part of this then is etheric energy turning up, and it's almost as if demon is forming part of is related to the supernal realm in that way. So obviously there's a question of whether Arcadia of Changeling is related to Arcadia of Mage, whether the Hissel / Shadow of Werewolf is related to the Wild of the other supernal realm. The Underworld and Stygia, obviously there's a possible relation there. And then that leaves the Inferno in New Order Darkness and Pandemonium, which is the supernal realm of demons, but is more of the true form of what demons should do, which is challenge people, whereas it's fallen in the sense that it just perverts people in the Inferno realm does, the demons from that realm. And does that mean then that then asks, is the ether then supernal realm reflected by the angels and demons of the God machine? So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to talk about of what Gnostic means and Technostic means within this setting. The other thing that I think it opens up the question of is how does it all relate to Promethean? Because
here we go.
If the God machine is a failed god that somehow created or has made use of our reality, our part of the universe, and it creates angels who also then eventually become demons, and they have a soul of form, right? It's an attempt at making the soul. And mages have souls that have awoken. Vampires have souls that have been broken. Geists or sin eaters have souls that have become an amalgam of a human soul with the soul of a ghost. So it is a soul that's become the spiritual purest form of a spirit of death. Werewolves have a twin soul, have a soul that's already claimed by Gaia / Father Wolf. That is essentially it's not really a human soul anymore anyway. It's already a spirit of a form waiting to become something more. So is Promethean then, does it fit into this setting in that there is another entity out there that isn't the God machine, that is a true form of a god of some form, that is a pure representation of matter and spirit brought together. And in order to help humanity and help our reality and screw over the God machine, created Prometheans, because it can't directly act within our world, and the only way to start directly acting within our world is to create new souls. And the way to create a new soul is to create a Promethean who eventually gathers together enough Azoth that coalesces and forms into a new soul, because that's what happens in Promethean. You become a new person. And the reason why this is interesting is because the God machine is a machine of forms. It's a machine on a cosmic scale, because it's using reality to its own ends. It is calculating and doing all the statistics and doing all the probabilities to create all its infrastructures and to use all the humans within our reality. Are the Prometheans that get created the chaos factor, which is also represented by the fact that the polar opposite of Azoth is that chaotic form of Pyros that manifests within Pandorans. So, Prometheans, I think, represent that true form of creative chaos put into reality that could either become a part of chaos that forms order, or part of chaos that forms pure, nightmares. And the cool thing then, if you think that way, is that does this offer a tier 4 level of gameplay for Promethean, where Prometheans not only become aware that they could become human, but they're aware that they could become human and act against the God machine.
Yeah, it's interesting how this entire discussion came about, because basically we were just talking about how we have angels with the God machine, but we also have the Kashmilim which are quite angel-like beings. And how exactly would that fit in? Are they perhaps the creations of an Abraxas, which is in some Gnosticism essentially like the true God, and exactly what they represent? And it's interesting to think about the fact that the Prometheans and their offspring are able to talk to other Prometheans without the effects of disquiet and all that. And you have to wonder, well, perhaps there's something else going on with these newly created souls, and how are they different than those of regular mortals born in the within the cage, created by or taken advantage of by the God machine itself? Again,
The thing to reinforce is that while another thing is how the God machine is using reality as well, because I think it's very easy to take as a literal interpretation in the setting, is that it is a machine. I think that you've got to think in a more kind of a higher level of that. And yeah, what is it doing with the cage? I really think it is the whole thing of it. It's harvesting stuff to become, to elevate itself. And Earth as a planet, as a reality, is a focal nexus point for where different arcane energies can be converted from one form to another. Mages can go to a node and take mana from it, but a node or a ley line or the dragon lines and so forth, also spew forth essence. So obviously things that feed on essence can take it from there. No, also these nodes are places where vampires such as the Circle of Chrome will go to, because obviously they deal with spirits, or the Auto Dracal goes to deal with to perform their crucibles, to undergo new changes to gain new powers of their coils. So that's also interesting, that how possibly ley lines and dragon lines and nodes and all these things, and verges, obviously, for possibly even changeling and Avernian gates, and all these things all interrelate, because these are all things that could be taken advantage of by the God machine to, within an infrastructure, to to convert and harvest essence that it requires. So there's a lot of crossover you can do. Focusing back on Demon itself, though, I mean, the powers that are in here are utterly cool and horrific in some respects, and really do represent the very alien nature of demons. They are truly, I think the only thing that comes close to their alien nature is kind of abyssal entities. But where these, demons have their powers come from a purpose within the architecture of reality. Abyssal entities have powers based on the fact they want to create absolute nothingness. Any other thoughts?
Well, I'm kind of curious what Mr. Sandchigger thinks about this.
Yeah.
What's does it meet your approval? Do you like it better than Demon the Fallen?
Yes and no. This all sounds like really great high level, concept stuff here. But if I'm playing Demon, what do I do on a day-to-day basis? I was never a human being. I've stolen somebody's identity by booting them out of reality. Do I have to maintain their relationships? Do I become a traveling bum who just fights against the God Machine? What is the point of the game?
The reason why it's essentially called a technostic espionage and is related to spying and so forth is that obviously if the demons do something wrong, the God Machine will be noted, and so there is a need to maintain their covers, their cover identity. So because the God Machine sees them as a fault in its plans and so wishes to eliminate them. Now, in the example characters given in the quick start, there is actually one character which doesn't quite know why it fell and wants to understand why it fell so it could actually possibly return to the God Machine and become an angel again. But there are demons that actually think the best thing they can do is to actually further descend. So that's why it's called Demon Descent, because the demons are looking for a way to almost extract themselves from Earth and our reality, so they can fully escape and be free from the God Machine. That also then represents a polar opposite to what mages are wanting to do, because mages want to elevate themselves so they have enough power over reality to rework it how they see. Demons obviously know possibly what's at the other end and actually no, you want to go the other way and fully escape. The game is about escaping the God Machine and hiding while you try and figure out how you can escape.
It sounds almost Nephandic.
Yeah.
I'm playing the bad guys from the original Mage.
they're kind of Nephandic in that sense, but they're not. They want this descent, but I don't think they want to bring reality down with them. They want to. Well, some of them might, obviously, but some of them just want to get away and escape. And they have quite interesting abilities in there. Like they can actually give a perfect lie to a human because they know how humans work. So there's this very built-in concept that because they're built by a machine, they can make use of their machine-like nature to exploit how reality works and how certain things work. So they know if they say the right things, they can hide and people won't notice them. So obviously, if I go back to a description of what it gives in here, it says, "What is the God Machine? It's whether it's a literal machine or surrounding, infiltrating, and encompassing the world. Some demons suspect that the whole world of darkness might be the God Machine, while others believe it's a function of the universe that serves itself rather than its original purpose. Others believe the God Machine is a parasite upon the world." So obviously that's a very big question. And there's the idea that you can see its gears, whether those are actual gears or they're gears in the sense of a kind of more of a metaphor. What does it want? The God Machine doesn't want to communicate with any mind on a scale of a demon or human. Even the angels only know whatever mission it burns into them, whenever they're sent out into the world. As far as any demon can tell, the God Machine wants to perpetuate its own existence and thus the status quo. So, the God Machine has this huge plan, which is you just can't comprehend. Um, and then how does it want to do it? Obviously, it has all these infrastructures that it brings into play. So infrastructures is like bringing the right people, the right resources, and lots of great examples of infrastructures are actually in the God Machine Chronicles. So even with this Quick Start and the God Machine Chronicles book, you can actually already start playing quite a good Demon the Fallen Chronicle where you use the characters in this Quick Start. Then there's the question of the fall. Angels begin as unthinking, obedient creatures that follow directives and principles. And between missions, it disassembles them and scrubs them down. And when they're torn from the God Machine's control, a falling demon experiences a tumult of new emotions and thoughts, because obviously it's now free to feel like a human that it was made to look like. So then there's the question here that a demon, to a certain extent, has possibly manifested a portion of a human soul in becoming free, because it has the shell ready for one to exist within it. The main thing for a demon is to survive and be vigilant over signs of angels that find them. So it's all about hiding. It's really about hiding, possibly in the same. It's in that respect kind of similar to Promethean, because obviously Prometheans want to hide because they don't want to, cause trouble for themselves, because people will hate them on sight, whereas demons need to hide because things are literally hunting after them. And it says here, demons will want to hide from the God Machine, but others may want to hijack infrastructures and steal new cover identities. And because they steal cover identities, it means they have a very interesting. They take on kind of like shadow names because they reflect what they do rather than the name of the cover identity that they currently hold. Yeah, there's a lot there, and there's a lot still to be revealed about what is the final end goal, because within changelings could become so powerful that they could become, true Fae themselves. In Mage, you can become so powerful that, you transcend reality itself and become a rival to the Exarchs themselves, or become an Exarch and, sit on the thrones with them. Werewolf's a weird one. When you get more powerful, you start bleeding off lots and lots of essence. So I think that represents the fact that you become such a creature of spirit that you've basically transcended your physical body. Mm-hmm. Geist is fairly obvious that there comes a point where you've had so many, not reincarnations, but you've come back from death so many times that your Geist has achieved what it wanted with you, and you finally die, or you survive and, you carry on without a Geist with you anymore. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the end goal is for Demon, because I think that's the interesting thing about New World of Darkness. You can actually play a long-term game that does have a kind of there is a conclusion that you could play towards that's inherent with the game.
Yeah, and an ascension or descension, I guess, in the case of demons.
Yeah. I mean, it could be the fact that you descend. So, yeah, as I said, I think there's this idea of descension to flee reality is kind of interesting.
Interesting.
It's pretty neat, and I'll be excited to see what else we learn with the core book.
I was just going to quickly go over some of the characters they give in the quick play. So you've got like an architect who, worked in construction, and he is a psychopomp, so he's all about guiding people. So he used to guide people with what he built, and he has a few interesting embeds and exploits. Like he can become living shadow. He leaves no forensic traces. He can do various tricks with light. He has demonic forms that allow him to have has electric jolts. He can see electricity. He can cause a fire to emanate from his body. Cause spatial distortion, so he can take a two-dimensional form. There's the musician character who's a messenger and is an integrator, so wants to reintegrate with the God Machine, and again can communicate with animals, can cause a swarm of animals to erupt, swarm of creatures, flies and worms, to erupt from his body and attack someone. Can create his demonic form, causes an EMP field, a frost aura, has mirrored skin. So there's a lot of powers that come with their like demonic forms. There's the nice guy character who was an office worker but wasn't, was just did his job and so forth, but is an incarnation as a destroyer. So you were meant to prevent something by destroying something, and again they've got like powers like Devil's Advocate, so they can cause disagreements, they can cause things to be quieted. They have a demonic form that has a barbed tail and a blade hand and a cavernous maw. And just there's more. So there's a lot there in the quick start. There's a freaking load. And like again, with the same with the Vampire, the Requiem quick start, you've pretty much got a very good condensed form of the World of Darkness rules with the God Machine rules on top.
I do like that rather than being a traditional Judeo-Christian Muslim kind of demon here, they seem to be going more toward the computer term, where it's just a program that runs in the background all by itself instead of something that you're actively in control of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a little afraid that people might think that's a little bit of a bait and switch. You're like, hey, let's play demon. And then you're like, sweet. And then you're like, yeah, you're like a program, a cog in the machine.
I kind of like that, though. It's a different take on things.
It definitely is.
But it plays into what Gnosticism is about better, because the idea of a computer program, though, works into the ideas of Platonic reality. So Platonic reality is the idea that at the high level you have mathematical constructs, and in the material world those mathematical constructs become reality. And that's what a computer is, really, in some respects. A program becomes, through acting through things, becomes a reality in what it performs and does. That's also kind of similar to the way you can view to the virtual adepts paradigm in Mage, and it still fits within Gnosticism. Still fits with Christianity and Abrahamic things, because obviously there is Gnostic Christianity as a form, but also it has greater links to Gnosticism as it appears within like Greek and Roman mystery cults and Zoroastrianism and Neoplatonism and so forth. So it really just it just blew open. I think what it's done is it's blown open the door to the definition of what a demon is, and a demon is not just, a guy in red with horns and a pointy stick.
Just that one splat.
Just that one splat. Yeah.
Awesome. And that is Demon of the Descent. All right, guys. I think that's it for New World of Darkness, and let's move on over to closing remarks. Do we have anything else we need to really say for the show?
Not really. I don't think so. Sorry, that was just my cat going mad. No, I think that's everything. Hopefully, we'll learn more about Demon soon, and we can talk about it more. What do we want to talk about on the next show? Are we going to finally do this Requiem for Dark Ages Vampire?
Yes. Unless another World of Darkness quick start comes out, I think we're going to do it.
Yeah, we'll do that one. And what else we got from Old World of Darkness that's coming up that we need to look at?
I don't know. Hey, Chigg, want to talk about Changeling?
Yeah, that'll be good.
I suppose we could do that. I've talked about it a little bit in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
Definitely. Awesome. So, we're Darker Days Radio. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Darker Days Radio. We're on Twitter as @DarkerDaysRadio. We're on G+. Just search for the Darker Days Radio community, where a lot of discussion goes on, and of course we have people running games. I really need to run my Tremere Chronicles some more. Totally going to do that, right, Chigg?
It's on the to-do list.
Yeah, it is.
I think I will be organising in the next month, I think. Because I want to run this New Order Darkness God Machine Chronicles rule set game. So I might do it as a hangout game with, if I can get James on board for it, and I think Sam wants to play in it, she'll play in it, and Mike, if you want to take part in it, because then we've got enough people that are, and Chigg as well, we've got enough people that are aware of the rules, the basic new World of Darkness rules, and then the real trick will be showing how the God Machine Chronicle rule set works on top of it.
Sure thing. We'll talk about that. And also, I wanted to point out that Aaron Dawson's going to be running a Wraith the Oblivion Chronicle on G+. So search for Wraith in the Motor City or go to the Darker Days G+ community and look in the events to check it out. I think there's one spot left, so definitely check that out. It's going to be in October 19th.
Yeah, and obviously we'll just sort out more Darklings as they turn up. And if anyone's got topics for us to talk about in particular, that'd be great. I think I need to talk to Pete and do another Fading Suns Darkling at some point. Yeah, that'll be good. Oh, and also at the end of October is Essen's Spiel, so I will be there. I plan on going there on the Thursday. Yeah, I'm going to take a day off work and go there on Thursday, and hopefully I will find some people to do any interesting interviews with, if there's anything cool kind of roleplay wise, though I think I'll mostly be keeping my eye out for anything interesting that turns up board game wise or wargaming wise. So I'll be there. Yeah.
Sweet. All right, that's it for this episode. Everyone, good night. So tonight we're going to talk about Mel's Hole. And now that I've actually said that out loud, that sounds wicked awkward.
Go on.
The Hole was first brought to media. It's great when you get started and there's a typo right there. All right, guys, seriously, I'm focused now. I'm focused.
I'm muting my microphone so I can laugh at Mel's hole.